Just how magnificent is Red Dead Redemption 2? A loaded question that attempts to obliterate any negatives, sure, but it's a conclusion I've reached over hundreds of hours of playtime. Once you've been in Rockstar's version of the Old West for such a substantial amount of time, it's less a game in the traditional sense and more a full-on quasi-simulation of being a cowboy in the year 1899. This is virtual reality without the headset. It's not perfect though, and Rockstar's latest can be painfully awkward and slow. Its animation priorities forcing you to extract one can of beans at a time from a homestead, only to shower you in graphical splendor when coming over a hill crest at the crack of dawn. Red Dead Redemption 2 is a game that has an indie soul, a way to play that contradicts everything you think you know about Rockstar's own past work, alongside a sense of reward born from not playing it like a video game. There's far more to reflect on when it comes to game time than just tonal preference per player though. Specific game mechanics, tucked away story details, obscure XP rewards. To get the most out of this particularly crazy masterpiece, you need to employ a very specific methodology. I'm Scott from WhatCulture.com, and this is Red Dead Redemption 2, 9 Ways You're Playing It Wrong. And don't worry, so was I. Number 9. Arthur's journal is integral to the game's story and him as a character. Besides being a handy way to recap past missions, Arthur's journal is an archive of all his innermost desires, opinions, and just precisely how he thinks he fits into this weird world of morally devoid antics and banditry. Though the game occasionally narrates a cutscene with a few passages, literally only a handful of times in the entire story though, you should take the time every few days of in-game time to open up the journal and get Arthur's thoughts on what's been happening. He'll make sketches of landmarks, animals, and people, alongside personal thoughts on whatever actions you just partook in. Often they can completely reframe otherwise cut-and-dry exchanges or action sequences. Staying away from main story spoilers, his comments on the Downs family after that first interrogation are fascinating, and you'll find out the threat he made to the child was more playing a role in an arbitrary exchange he's become desensitized to, rather than a reflection of his overall personality. Such a thing is fundamental to the very redemptive arc Arthur goes on, and you'll find his breakdown of Dutch as a leader from years gone by, insight into Morgan and Hosea's relationship, plus exactly how the gang got to be so stranded up in the mountains back at the beginning of the game. Yes, a lot of this stuff is technically part of the story anyway, but I guarantee you'll have a far better experience making a point of taking it all in. Number 8. A price on your head is massively beneficial. Oh god, the bounty system. Described as everything from broken to authentic to the time period, minus the fact that NPCs know exactly who you are even if you're butchering someone up in the mountains, there are some key gameplay benefits to actively keeping a price on your head. First up, having a bounty guarantees bounty hunters, roaming posses of AI gunslingers who'll randomly come to bring you down. The higher the bounty, the more there are. But this is a good thing, providing it's not breaking the character of Arthur you're setting up, because engaging in frequent combat provides XP, expands your Deadeye allowance and stamina, and makes use of the entire environment as one giant playspace. Honestly, few things are cooler than facing off against a platoon of gun-toting outlaws in the middle of the night, with just the moonlight piercing through the forest as you take them out in super slow motion. Killing bounty hunters always nets you a combination of belt buckles, tonics, horse revives, etc. that are immediately useful, or they can be sold for better gear and equipment. The solution to Red Dead 2's bounty system? Indulge in it. Number 7. Spend hours in the camp. The place where missions are more triggered than play out, some of Red Dead's most poignant and well-written character moments happen back at camp. Of course, there are a couple of spots where defined gatherings play out as part of the overall story, and you can spend time interacting with the entire gang, laughing with friends, getting drunk, singing songs, and seeing what makes people tick. What you're missing, though, is that you can do this all the time. Rockstar have written a ludicrous amount of dialogue and coded scores of animations fleshing out every single character, and by indulging in the camp environment, you'll see far more of them than just treating the area like a mission hub. Pearson's backstory in the Navy, Bill Williamson's termination from armed service, Lenny's parents, and Javier's initial interactions with Dutch to join the gang, there's a rich extension to Red Dead 2's main thread everywhere you look. Even Arthur's conversations with Mary Beth are arguably essential to getting just how morally complex he is as an individual. We're not used to taking in such a gargantuan game holistically, and you'll miss multiple backstories or an all-round greater feeling of immersion if you're just dropping off carcasses for that day's meat stew and moving on. Number 6. Explore the entire map for chapter-specific missions and interactions. Another thing that feels counterproductive to the story being told across those first few chapters, i.e. the need to hunt and gather for the camp to stay alive, is that you're better off going in every direction other than the next mission marker. Unlike GTA 5, the radius you'll fill out on the map is substantial, and you can canvas the entire thing in a couple of hours. Doing so introduces you to the likes of Saint Denis way before you get there in the story, and you'll gain access to a wider array of clothing, plus all the travel-based XP milestones otherwise given as the story unfolds. Your horse bond will likely be maxed out by the time you return, and with the amount of Radiant quests that'll trigger, you can improve your honor and Deadeye meters too. The way Rockstar have populated Red Dead Redemption 2's world progression is per chapter. Some mission givers and characters only spawn during certain chapters, so you're better off seeing what you can find at every opportunity, rather than waiting for the credits to roll before going out and doing the rest. It feels counterproductive given every other open world game Rockstar have given us, but Red Dead 2 really is the sum of its parts. You'll miss a lot of those components if you're not looking for them. Number 5. Maintain honor in dishonorable situations. Does a person's acts define them? Does someone deserve a second chance after a life of crime? Is there a way for Arthur to do good when he's otherwise defined as an outlaw? These questions aren't meant to have defined answers, but you'll get more out of the story missions and narrative overall by playing Arthur as honorably as possible, especially come the game's final scenes. To do so, use the lasso to tie people up rather than killing them. You're free to shoot O'Driscolls and Murphy Bloods all day long, and you can absolutely return a punch if you're struck first, but sometimes you might want to steal a stagecoach or horse for one of the fences. Though you'll take a minor honor hit when mounting your quarry of choice, that avoids killing them altogether and giving yourself a bigger dip to your morality. Also note that you can win the majority of duels, including those against the legendary gunslingers, by shooting the pistol out of your opponent's hand, resulting in a positive honor boost instead. Unless the game is making a point of it, there's almost always a way to play honorably. You just need to get creative. Number 4, use the knife to catch animals instead of bullets. So the game has a whole thing about holding R1 or RB to study an animal and then figure out the precise weapon or ammo to use for a perfect pelt, but that's nonsense. Just use a knife. Yes, it is actually possible to knife a bear to death with enough patience, but deers or pronghorns or the vast majority of creatures you need to upgrade the camp or get fancier clothing can be acquired with a specific knife animation. First, lasso your creature of choice, but don't hit the right trigger to reel them in. Instead, hold the left trigger and walk up to the deer in question. Once close enough, you'll get a kill prompt, and it's this animation that always produces a perfect pelt. Easier than the standard hunter-gatherer rigmarole, in Red Dead Redemption 2, the blade is far mightier than the rifle. Number 3, but feel free to use whatever you want on legendary animals. Contrasting the cautious approach and accurate lassoing you'll do for the majority of animal kills to get perfect pelts, legendaries are that certain kind of video game enemy that you can just take your day out on. Shotgun blasts to the body, explosive revolver rounds, frickin' dynamite. Legendary skins don't spoil, so just do whatever the hell you want when coming across these guys, and even if you drop the pelt afterwards in a fit of pure game physics anarchy, it'll always show back up with the trapper to be used in equipment and item recipes. Point being, throw all your hunting knowledge out the window and get to nailing these things to the wall. Number 2, indulge in the bizarrely slow pace of everything. You just can't play Red Dead Redemption 2 the same way that you play any other game, especially open world games. Hell, I went back to Assassin's Creed Odyssey after sinking 100+ hours, and Ubisoft's formulaic approach feels stilted as hell. That's not an abject negative though. Having checklists of collectibles, reams of fetch quests, and rewarding loot grinds is far more immediate and engaging. It's far more of a video game. But where Ubisoft are providing fast food for the masses, Red Dead is challenging your palate to try and accept something that has a more satisfying acquired taste. After a total playtime of 126 hours so far, I've boiled this down to pacing. The game has a deliberate pace it tries to infer through menial campfire tasks, slow burn early missions, extended dialogue exchanges, and impactful gunplay or hunting sequences. In that opening tutorial alone, Red Dead Redemption 2 lays out exactly how it's supposed to be played, and the overriding sentiment is take your time. Walk through towns, explore in directions that take you off the beaten path. Talk to civilians and tease out conversations with shopkeepers. You'll find hidden businesses, underbellies of crime, and other notable script choices that all contribute to Rockstar's picture of the Old West circa 1899. And number 1, you're supposed to play a good person. Hopefully you've seen my video on Rockstar's hidden message in Red Dead Redemption 2, how the game addresses their own history as a developer, touches on how past Rockstar games let you indulge in violence for the sake of throwaway nihilism, and how they've matured as a studio to bring about consequence. In short, Red Dead 2 is the first time Rockstar have given you a branching main path outside of GTA 4 and a couple of moments in GTA 5. Yet here they deliver multiple endings that reflect how you controlled Arthur, rather than just a handful of binary choices. There's a fundamentally bad ending for Red Dead Redemption 2, and it literally involves Arthur being executed like a rabid dog. Again, going back to the journal, his candor when talking to the majority of the camp in cutscenes, his confessionals with Mary Beth, and, if your honor meter is high enough to trigger the scene, the interaction with Sister Calderon where he talks about being afraid of death, all of this plays into the idea that Arthur is a good-hearted person led astray by Dutch. It might be a Rockstar game with a protagonist that can indulge in wanton destruction if you like, but Arthur Morgan's violent acts are more a product of Dutch's teachings. And though that doesn't excuse responsibility on Arthur's part, the entire point of Arthur Morgan is redemption. The very name of the game doesn't won't work unless you play into that arc, and to do so, you need to play with good moral fiber. And that's my list. That's my potential final thoughts on Red Dead Redemption 2, though it continues to sit in the top 5 best-selling games in the Western Hemisphere, so we'll probably come back again. Let me know how you play Red Dead Redemption 2. Have you changed from when you first started playing back at launch to now, and how do you view Arthur Morgan? I've been Scott from WhatCulture.com. Please check out the WhatCulture Gaming Podcast, and I'll catch you soon.